currently on the road out of Tokyo. As Holly, we understand more people in that area of the power plant are being warned to stay indoors.
We, as they are trying to piece together exactly what's happened here. As you said, we understand from the Chinese media that the walls and roof have been damaged, that people have been warned to stay indoors. Now, you'll remember that 50,000 people had already been evacuated who lived within a 6-mile radius of that power plant. So presumably, these people who are being warned to stay indoors are further away from the nuclear power plant than that. An hour or so ago, we were hearing reports from the Chinese media, from the Japanese media, that there had been some kind of explosion, that smoke was billowing from that plant, and that one or perhaps multiple workers had been injured. Now, that power plant is about 200 kilometers north of where I am. It lost power during the quake yesterday, and its backup generators failed. That resulted in station blackout, which is, I understand, one of the worst things that can happen in a nuclear power plant. Now, a few hours ago, the Japanese media began reporting that there had already been a leakage, but we don't know the exact extent of that. The worst thing that would happen would, of course, be a meltdown. To try and stop that from happening, the authorities authorized the releasing of slightly radioactive vapor earlier today, and that's why that evacuation took place of 50,000 people who live within a 6-mile radius of that power plant.
Holly, we're just going to see that picture again from Japanese television, NHK, who've circled what they believe is the building in question. Now, they're reporting that outer structure that houses the reactor appears to have blown off, which they say could suggest the containment building had already been breached. Earlier they said they'd already released this amount of radioactive steam to reduce pressure, at that time saying the danger was minimal. But the fear is, as we were hearing from our expert, any unchecked rise in temperature could cause the core itself to burn through the reactor vessel, and then radiation being released into the containment building that surrounds it. Now, clearly the worry, Holly, is even though they're 100, 150, 160 miles from Tokyo, you still have many people in the vicinity.
I'm watching Japanese television. They seem to be carrying pictures from that area. There's shaky pictures. There's clearly some confusion. What they seem to be showing is people looking at that nuclear power plant. As I say, there's shaky pictures. There seems to be some degree of panic. We're also hearing that there's going to be a press conference any minute now by the authorities on what exactly is going on at this power plant in Fukushima. And I'll bring you details of that as soon as we have it. Of course, you're absolutely right. The power plant was shut down as soon as the quake happened, but the core remains at a very high temperature, and this is all about efforts to try and cool down that core. That's why the government allowed the releasing of that slightly radioactive vapor earlier on today. But this is perhaps a sign that hasn't been as successful as they hoped.
Holly, for the moment, thank you for that live from Japan. Let's now talk in the studio to Roger Yates, Director of Plan International.